Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
I currently sit on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee as Supervisor John Joya's appointee. Before I was appointed, it was very frustrating trying to get information from district staff. I think now the district staff is trying to turn a new leaf and trying to increase communication, but one of those frustrations manifests into my candidacy. That's the reason why I'm running for the school board, because I feel frustrated on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. We need to institute a hard rule to treat Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members with the same respect as the other board members. That way, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members are given the actual information to do their job. We need to empower the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and make sure that we increase transparency. I think the school district does an adequate job, but I'm not here to talk about adequacy. I'm shooting for excellence. That's what we need to do as a school board.
Mr. Christian.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. The Bond Oversight Committee, I believe it should be transparent and accountability. I believe that we should be connecting to every community at large, from Hercules, Pinot, San Pablo, Richmond, El Cerrito, Kinston, because the money doesn't belong to us. This is taxpayers' money. And I believe there should be transparent accountability to make sure that everything is done accordingly. And that when you're open, that people will see the honesty and seeing the work being done, where nobody will not be hesitating to question the fact of what's going on. And I attended a meeting at Hercules, and I think Hercules was not, they wanted to see these more to be transparent than to stuff being closed behind the scenes.
Thank you. Ms. Cuevas.
So, the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, what's its purpose? Its purpose is to be our eyes and our ears, to watch what's happened to the public dollars that you all so generously have voted for. You know how much bond money we voted for? $1.7 billion. That's a lot of money. I know it is. I grew up pretty humble before. That's a lot of money. And when you have a bond oversight committee with leaders on that oversight committee saying, I am not getting enough information to play my role, Houston, we have a problem here. And one of the reasons we have a problem is we can't keep re-electing and supporting folks who've been part of the problem. You don't let the cat take care of the canary. And so I ask that you support folks like me who understand what our priority is, but who truly value that democracy is best served when we don't have folks hiding secrets. Secrets like an investigation from the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Ms. Donoso.
So let me be specific with a couple of suggestions around this. And one, I would say, I yesterday was out walking El Cerrito, and this issue is actually probably the most common thing that I'm hearing as I'm talking to voters, is the lack of communication and the question about how are our dollars being spent. So I went to the website last week. It is very difficult, and I have a master's degree, to get the information in a way that's clear, concise, and easy to understand. So one, I suggest that we do that. Two, for those that don't go to the website to get information, I also think we need to be providing our residents with a scorecard in terms of how that money is being spent, what's happening, and where's the accountability in a way that's understandable for all of our residents. Because we have people who live right across the street from where the new Coromonte campus is, who have been, all week this week complaining to me that they don't have the information that they need.
Mr. Stevens, we're going to start with your hand.
Yes, I actually was an alternative. Alternate to the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. And I walked in there, and I sat down, and I saw about 19 people. That's entirely too many people. The perception is that something is being hidden. And I can understand why that perception exists. It's important that we have transparency. So the question isn't really about the pros and cons of the next bond measure. It's about communication of information to the citizens' pocket and pocketbooks. And that's what we have to keep in mind. I think there's not enough transparency, and I think the communication ought to be there. It reminds me of the judge in San Jose who spoke to his, and during sentencing, he spoke in a very clear, non-legal fashion. Everybody should be able to understand where the money is going and how it's being used. Everyone at an 8th grade level should understand that, and that's not the case. So I'm for changing that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Phillips.
How do we improve communications between the committee and the district, or the residents and citizens in the district? I think the first thing is when we make appointments, and board members who make appointments, when we make appointments to the board, we need to make sure, or I'm sorry, not the board, to the committee, we need to make sure that we are appointing people who believe in transparency and people who believe in open government. And I think that's a very important thing to make sure that we do. The second thing that I'd like to say is, as far as I'm concerned, if anyone ever has a question of me or of anyone that I ever appoint to anything, if I'm fortunate enough to be in that position, you can always call me. My phone number is 510-672-3756. I'm here for you. I am here to serve you. The last thing I want to say about the committee, frankly, is that I believe in an independent, fully empowered committee. And I would support that if I am fortunate enough to be on the school board. Thank you.
Ms. Merriweather.
So improving communication on our CBOC has been a question for a while, and many people feel that it's not as transparent as it could be. I think how we can improve it is to maybe change our selection process for the appointments, where we can really have people who are really interested in being on the CBOC. I think also that we should allow those people to go to training so they can learn about what the bond is. And I know we're just now beginning to implement a Bond 101 training for people on that committee so they can really understand and know what questions to ask so they can get the information that they need to do their job. I think that's really important, and I think that we have to make sure that staff understand that they have to be able to do their job and they have to have the information.
Ms. Cronenberg.
Thank you. This is an important question because people are very concerned about the bond program. I too served, one of the many committees I served on was the Bond Oversight Committee a number of years ago. I think the key to communication is simplicity. I think we do a lot of communicating, and I don't think it's, I think the issue around transparency is that be clear. And what we've done is we've maybe over-communicated sometimes, and we've communicated in language that wasn't well understood. So I would say that what we really want to be able to do is distill it into ways that people can understand it. Take the training, and we're going to do this, take the training and put it online so people can understand what they're reading, and take Bond 101 training even if you're not on the Oversight Committee, so you can better understand the job that the Oversight Committee has.
Ms. Carvana.
If I can ask you to repeat the question so I make sure that I wrote it down correctly.
Sure. What is your position? Oops. Sorry. How would you improve communication between the district citizens and their representatives on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee?
Okay, so first I would want to say that I would make sure that all the volunteers on this committee, because this committee is filled with volunteers from our communities. They are not in it to, keep something from us. They're in it to figure out what's going on too. So I would make sure that all of the people appointed to this committee are independent, so that there's no conflict of interest. But then I would make sure that we publicize these meetings to the community so that the representatives can get the information out to the community, because that seems to be the problem. They have all this information, but they can't give it out. The website is hard for people to understand, and so I think that everything that happens with the committee has to be independent. They need their own counsel, they need their own legal counsel, they need their own website people. This committee has to run by itself in order to get the information to the community. But we have to remember that they are volunteers, and we appreciate what they're doing.
Right. Thank you. For the next question, I'm going to go even numbers and then odd number. This is so everybody will have the chance to be the starter, the first person. This question reads, what is your position on charter schools? And would you support the opening of new charter schools in West County? And Mr. Chow, I'll start with you.
I need the microphone. So I preface my comments by saying I look back to my own background. Low-income, single-parent household who wasn't at risk, but wasn't necessarily gifted or talented. In other words, I was not a profitable student, but yet when I was in high school, I was given the same fair shake. That's the reason why I'm running right now. And that's the reason why I do not favor increasing the amount of charter schools inside our school district. I'm especially against for-profit charter schools, which target profitable kids who experiment on them and leave everybody else in the dust. Those are the facts right now. More importantly, academic studies say that charter schools do not provide better results. So when you look at the actual evidence and weigh the facts, charter schools do not offer better results. That's why I'm against increasing the number of charter schools, and I'm also especially against for-profit charter schools, who are responsive only to shareholders.
Ms. Cuevas.
Thank you. So, how many of you have gone to multiple forums already? How many have heard me say I am against for-profit charter schools, like 5 forums ago? Does anybody remember that? Yeah. That's because I know it's important and I know the value of traditional public education. But let's not fool ourselves. Parents need choices. They need choices because at the end of the day, when they look at their kids' eyes, they want the best for their child. And I will not be somebody that says you can't. I will be somebody who says you can. And so it's not an issue. And I want to say this question has come up over and over and over again in every forum. And it's politically motivated. It's about, I'm in the middle because you have labor on this side, people like Randy Weingarten, and then you have like Michelle Rhee on this side, the so-called reformers. Well, you know what? I'm Valerie, and I'm for the people in the middle where it matters. People who just want the best education for their kid. And if that comes in any form, it's not my role to say you can't have it.
Thank you. Ms. Kirkland Young.
I'm going to stand up so I can make sure everyone can see how concerned I am. You know, I am a concerned parent, and like Valerie said, we keep hearing this thing about charter schools, okay? I have 7 kids, and when I have to send my kids to schools that are not safe and where they can't get an education, then I'm looking for alternatives. I sent one of my sons to Salesian High because I was not going to send him to Hercules High where I thought he might get beat up. So the thing is this. Parents are looking for alternatives. The bad guy is not charter schools. Now, I'm not for us losing funds for our school district. I don't want to see that. But the real issue is this district. We need to get it together. Once we get it together, then parents won't worry about sending their kids to charter schools because they won't have to. They'll be satisfied with the safety of our schools and they'll be satisfied with the education. So let's look at the real problem. The problem is not charter schools. The problem is this district. Let's go for a student game instead of political game. I'm about tired of it. Thank you.
And Ms. Merriweather, hold applause, please. Ms. Merriweather.
So, charter schools, I'm not against charter schools. In fact, we have charter schools in the district. But I'm against increasing charter schools. I think we have enough right now in our district, and I feel that charter schools are continuing to take enrollment from our other schools. And not only that, there's the funding piece. And Mr. Chow already mentioned the research. And in fact, 37% of charter schools do worse than public schools. And so I feel that a lot of research needs to be done with charter schools. They need to look at a real true evaluation of charter schools. They're still fairly new. They've only been around since the 90s. And so I think that we should serve our public school children the best way that we can.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Cuevas, almost verbatim. If each of you receive a letter tomorrow that says, congratulations, your child has been accepted to the Oakland School of the Arts, would you frown on that and say, oh no? No, we would send you. I think unlike most of the candidates, maybe all of the candidates, I've experienced every type of school, private, public, homeschool, and charter school. My daughter's in charter school in Oakland. Why? Because the school system couldn't serve her needs. She's a gated child, and she was told, we don't have that for you here. My son is in public school, but he was also homeschooled. So the difference between charter schools, I think it's a wake-up call. We need to see what they're offering, why they're offering that, and try and duplicate that expectation in our school system. A charter school is privilege. Public schools necessarily are given by the right, and that gives charter schools a little more power than public schools. It's privilege. You can get put out if your demeanor is not correct. All right, thank you.
So we'll have odd numbers. Ms. Block.
Well, the state of California in 1992 instated an ed code that we would have charter schools, and in fact, they originally started to create more innovation in schools. As a board member, I would be following ed code and approving charter schools based on the criteria set out for us by the state. However, I do also want to speak to the issue of the political nature of this question. This question is, are you with us or are you against us? Do you want to keep the status quo power base, or are you for kids? That's what it says to be. I'm thinking about the children who would go to these schools and excel when they were in schools where they didn't do well, where there weren't good educational opportunities. Parents are voting with their feet. We have waiting lists at all of our charter schools. I think parents should have this option, but of course I'm not for the charter schools that make money. Thank you.
Mr. Christian.
Thank you for the question. I just wanted to start off by saying we have some good charter schools, we have some bad charter schools. We have some good public schools, we have some bad public schools. We have some good police officers, we got some bad police officers. So what we're looking at is building education. And if we do it right, if we invest into education in public schools, by putting music back into the school, by bringing things to enhance our young people, this whole district should have music programmed throughout this whole district. So if we invest into our young people, we're going to get some good results. And then we won't have to worry about those who are leaving out of the district or going to other places. If we do it right, we're going to have the best. But if we don't do it right, we ain't going to have the best.
And Mr. Noso.
So I had mentioned before, I am a parent who came here, a single mom who actually came here with my 7-year-old son. And one of the things I talk about often around this issue is that we really do have to focus on our traditional neighborhood schools. When we look at the proficiency, third grade proficiency for African American and Latino students, 1/3 of our students are below basic. When we look at algebra proficiency in 9th grade, 84% of our students are below basic in algebra. So for me, the issue is how do we improve those schools? How do we improve what's happening for those students? That's what I'm concerned about, and that's what I'm going to fight for. Thank you.
Ms. Cronenberg, have you got a mic?
So the charter school story. Charter schools take funding out of the school district in an unfair way. And the way that works is when a child enrolls in a charter school, The funding that goes from the state to that child goes with them to the charter school. But the charter school doesn't take the more expensive child to educate. They don't take the profoundly disabled child, the special ed child who needs extra funding, which is paid for in a larger group where you get the economies of scale. When the more charter schools we have, the less money we will have for the children who are left behind, who are not in charter schools. And what has to happen for this to be fair for the children in California is that there has to be a change in how this is set up. There has to be a way that our children are not disadvantaged by other families pulling their kids out.
Mr. Phillips.
I do not support increasing the number of charter schools in our district. I agree with Mrs. Cronenberg. The charter schools drain funds from the district. And regardless of the fact that we now have a new local control funding formula, regardless of that, most people don't realize the schools are still underfunded, even with the new funding formula. And they're not expected to be fully funded until the year 2021. So when we have children peeling off going to these schools, it is reducing the average daily attendance, and because it's reducing average daily attendance, it's reducing the amount of money that actually comes into the district. So that is not something that I actually support for the funding reason. And the last thing I'd like to say about that is I truly, sincerely believe that charter schools, particularly for-profit charter schools, that is the first step to the privatization of public education. And I strongly, strongly believe in free public education for all. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. For this next question, I'm going to begin with Mr. Stevens, and we will proceed with the reverse even numbers and reverse odd numbers. The question is, would you support school board campaign finance reform, such as campaign contribution limits, and vendors who do business with the West Contra Costa School District being banned from contributing to campaigns?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that large amounts of money from special interest groups going to one candidate, I think, is unfair. It creates this notion of that it's not transparent. It also creates the notion that, is it a payoff of some kind, or is it a down payment for things to come? You can't avoid that kind of speculation. So I am for campaign restraints and reform, especially from construction, where you give $124,000 to a candidate, when that money should actually go to Grant Elementary, where children are sharing the spit and saliva when they're trying to play a little musical instrument and pass it on to 28 more students. Because I am for arts being returned to the school. And I think that amount of money is obscene. Part of it ought to be given back. And the construction company ought to do something else with it, to the classroom. Thank you.
Ms. Merriweather?
So when we talk about campaign reform, we're talking about a national problem. Campaign reform, I mean, it's from the president all the way down to our governor to senators. Everyone is a special interest group, if you want to call it that. And so I feel that if we want to change campaign reform, we have to start at the top. I don't think we can start at the local school board candidates, because we need to start at the top so we can actually make some changes if we want to change it.
Mr. Magnan?
I'm going to continue to stand up since I'm in the habit of it. Am I against school, or am I for some sort of school board finance reform? I would say yes to that. I would have to piggyback on what Mr. Stevens said about it seems like it's some sort of payoff or some sort of pay for some sort of future vote or work or something like that. And really, the school board is supposed to be about students. I am here because my children are in this district. they go to these schools. I want them to have the best education. I know that parents want that for their children. That's what this school board, that should be the motivation of every member on this school board, to make sure that we're giving the children exactly what they need so that they can be successful in school and so that they can be successful in their future careers. That is the only motivation for being a member here. If it's for a jump start on your political career, that's not the right platform. This is not the right platform for this. I am a parent. I want the school board member, whether it's me or somebody else, to care just as much about my kids' education and your children's education than anything else. That is what the main priority should be.
Ms. Cuevas?
So yeah? Okay. So it seems like you can't have any integrity before you win an election, because supposedly if you're going to run for office, you're supposed to take money from everybody. But I'm different. I'm not taking direct contributions from any interest, because I absolutely believe in that. Anybody who has business before this district should not be funding any candidate in their direct campaigns, and that is happening in this race. And it doesn't start with the president. It doesn't start with the governor. It's like Michael Jackson says, it starts with the man in the mirror. Okay? And I'm willing to walk that talk, even if it means I lose this race, because I'm not going to let people pour in their dollars. Instead, you know what I'm doing? I'm calling my Aunt Rita in El Paso, and I say, Aunt Rita, I believe in kids. Do you believe in kids? She says, I do, mija. I'm going to send you $10. She don't even live in our community. But you know what? She's living campaign finance reform, and I'm proud of it.
Mr. Chow? Mike?
It takes far too much money to run for office nowadays. It should not be about money. It should be about merit. It should be about ideas. It should be about what improves our school district. What can we do to improve student achievement? So that's the reason why I would be supportive of looking at campaign finance reform. The problem, though, is that it actually is a national issue. The problem is that there's Supreme Court laws that allow corporations to be classified as people, and they're dumping large amounts of money here in West County. The California Charter Schools Association is opening up independent expenditures and investing large amounts of money to bankroll two of my opponents that stand next to me today. That is unacceptable. That's why we in West County need to step up and say that every single student deserves a fair shake. That's the reason why I came back here. That's the reason why I'm running for office, so that way we can have great neighborhood schools.
Thank you. And so we'll start with Mr. Phillips. Odd numbers.
First, I'm not going to throw stones at anyone. Being a public official is hard, and it's very easy to throw stones. I'm a public official. I serve on the first 5 Contra Costa Children and Families Commission. I've also had the honor and privilege of representing West Contra Costa County on the Contra Costa Democratic County Central Committee. So I'm not going to throw stones because I know how hard the people on the board work. But what I will say is this: I do support contribution limits, and I do support a voluntary spending limit for our candidates, because I believe when we begin to take money out of politics, the people come back into the politics. So that is something that I do support, that is something that I will stand for, and that is something that I will speak to publicly. Thank you.
Ms. Cronenberg.
Thank you. So the fact here is that there is money in politics. And the money that exists in politics exists because essentially, what Ms. Merriweather said, it's set up this way from the top. Citizens United made it possible for anyone to give any amount of money and for independent expenditures like the Charter Schools Associations to come in and to not be listed on somebody's documents as somebody who is actually contributing, but yet to have dramatic influence over a campaign. So I would support a look at the entire thing. But that look at changing the entire process would have to come from the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is what supported Citizens United. And until that changes, it doesn't matter what we collect individually, because anyone else can come in and give whatever they want to give on the side, just like the charter schools.
Mr. Nelson.
So I actually think it does matter what we collect. I have over 100 donors that have given to me, like Valerie, you know.
Technical difficulties. Okay. All right, you begin.
So anyway, you heard what I said. That I have had over 100 donors. Many of them who, like Val, are, you know, my family, my friends, people who believe in me, people who don't live in this district, but believe and know that we need some new leadership. So I think that that's important. And I have personally knocked on over 1,000 doors. I just counted and my knuckles are getting sore. But in doing that, I will tell you that one of the things I hear most often from people when I speak to them is, wow, I haven't had a candidate come personally talk to me and I don't know how long. And that's because I think of the money that has been in politics. So I absolutely think we need some reform. I do believe, like as Mr. Phillips said, that we need some reform in terms of the limits and that we have some voluntary spending limits as well. Thank you.
Mr. Christian.
Thank you for the question. Finance reform, it should be a limit. But we know things come from the top and the Supreme Court and so forth. One of the things I look at is when the true candidates connect with the people of the community. And when you're involved in the community and people know the work you have done, especially when you don't even get paid and you go back in the community to work in the community. And when you have a love to see things, seeing things, good things happen, I believe that it takes a grassroots movement to actually change about the things. And change do need to come. And some people don't like change. Some people like the status quo. But the status quo must go.
And lastly, Ms. Roth.
I don't know how you're keeping this straight. All right. No, I think there do need to be restrictions, and we're one of the few districts in the state that allows people to donate to a campaign and then be hired on a contract. Now, I know Ms. Cronenberg thinks it's okay because she collected $80,000 from construction interest in her last campaign. And these people are working on a $1.3 billion bond program. And we're comparing this to some charter schools that are only doing what they're entitled to do by state law and not taking money from the district, except per child, which of course goes to educate that child. Anyway, to say everybody does it reminds me of being a principal and all the kids are saying everybody cuts into line. We have to be ethical, and the ethics should start right here, and we have to clean up this system where we have a pay-to-play system for donations in our campaigns.
Whoa, that's a hell of an accusation.
This has been wonderful. Time flies. It is now after 8 o'clock. The forum ends at 8:30. And so to allow each of the candidates to have a 2-minute closing, we will start having the closing statements now. I will start with Mr. Stevens, as I said earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chow. And we will go from my right to my left. Believe me, there are more questions, many more, but their time will not allow.
First of all, I want to thank you for having me here. I feel very passionate about education. My father went to the 4th grade with no parents and was beaten out of the school, and I taught him to read when I was 16 years old. He's a gifted man. He put 5 children through college, and I'm one of them. My experience is extensive. I've gone through school with $62 that was given me to go to college. I wrote my grants. I worked as a dishwasher, a janitor, and I worked my way through engineering school. I know the value of education. And I know that it is the success of a family when a child goes through school and becomes successful. My family now claims a doctor, 2 PhDs, all coming from very humble beginnings. I know the value of education. My little cousin in the 5th grade at the highest math score in the nation went on to graduate from Harvard cum laude. I know the value of education. I won't compromise what goes on in the classroom, how it's being underserved, with no vision for improving. Technology is one of my campaign stance. Technology, not just gadgets in the classroom, but technology in learning. I'm not for gigantic amounts of money. Our president of the board said that build a new school and the achievement will increase, performance will increase. Hogwash. Hogwash. The character of our children is fading. The gap is getting wider for everyone. African American GPA has been 1.9 for 20 years, hasn't changed. Charter schools, we need charter classrooms. We need charter classrooms. Thank you very much.
Mr. Phillips.
I want to thank you all again for putting on this forum today. This was an excellent exercise in civics and what goes on and what should go on in any campaign, and that is for an opportunity for all of these people to come here and express to you what their thoughts are, and for you to be able to hear them and make an educated choice on who you'd like to vote for. I know schools. I have tremendous long experience and background in schools. I have approximately 6 years of teaching experience in the West Contra Costa Unified School District, the San Francisco Unified School District, and the Fairfield Sassoon Unified School District. I'm not here to experiment on your children. I know this. I also work for the California School Employees Association, which is a union that represents classified school employees. So we're talking the office secretaries and the lunch ladies and the instructional assistants and the bus drivers. I know schools. This is what I do every day of my life. This is how I make a living. So while everyone is here and everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses, I'm here to tell you that if you honor me with the opportunity to serve you on this board, I will hit the ground running, because this is something that I know. And I humbly ask for your vote on election day. Thank you very much.
Ms. Mary Lynn.
So I also want to thank the League of Women Voters and the district for collaborating in this effort. And I am running for re-election. And like I said earlier, this district is making progress. I'm not going to promise you all these things that you've been hearing tonight, but I know for a fact what is going on. Our graduation rates are up. Our suspension rates are down. We are engaging the community. When we revised our strategic plan, we had over 2,000 participants engaged in that. That made history for this district. So we're beginning to engage parents. For our LCAP, we're beginning to engage communities and parents. So things are changing. It's changing statewide. We are getting more money to serve our neediest students. And yes, I care about those students. So how can we change the odds for our students? We have to target the neediest students. We have to begin early. I know we have to begin early with our youngest children and go all the way to college. We have to coordinate our services. That's why I'm passionate about full-service community schools, because I know that every day our children come to school with unmet needs that need to be addressed. Yes, we need more professional development for our teachers. So I'm advocating to continue what we've been doing. And yes, we're on our way, but we need people there that really care. And I care. I'm an educator myself. I've been in the classroom. I know what our students need.
Ms. Cronenberg.
I echo the thank you to all of you at the League. You've done a really good job tonight. I appreciate it. And for everybody who came and gave us some time tonight as well. I'm asking you to vote for me to return me for my third term to the West Contra Costa School Board. I believe the district is doing an extraordinary job, and I will say it, an extraordinary job. Our teachers are working harder than they ever have. I've had the honor of being supported by them in this election, and I really want you to know how important it is that we continue to support them in their work in the classroom. We've made sure that they have additional professional development and around curriculum and around technology. Technology is incredibly important now, and we are growing it in our district because we have the bond program that allows us to do it. We're able to bring in one-to-one. Dijon is about to have tablets for each of the children there, and their teachers and their families are being trained on how to use it. Our most at-risk students are getting additional support from our pilot school at Stige. We're putting in wraparound services there as we are throughout the district. We have a very, very robust plan that we weren't able to fund before because we were losing money. But our LCAP, which is the local control funding plan, and our strategic plan put together are putting us on a pathway to have much success in the future. And I hope that I was a big part of making all of this happen, and I hope you allow me to be there in the future for a third term. Thank you, and I appreciate your vote.
Ms. Kirkland-Young.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And I want to also say why I think that you should give me your vote. And I think that is because a connection is so important. I've been hearing, all these things that have been implemented at the school level and all these programs and everything, and they sound so good. But if you actually have a connection, you'll know that they're not being executed at the school level. I'd like to see the school board really work with teachers, parents, and students. Parents know what their children need. Teachers know what the students need, and they know what they need. I'd like to see a committee of teachers, one teacher from every school and an alternate, come together on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis and let us know how these programs we've implemented are actually doing at the school. Because I'm going to say one thing about Dijon. Dijon has a whole homemade kitchenettes and microwaves and everything that's not even being used. Yet we talk about all the good programs and good things that are going on at the school. I have that connection. Before I became an attorney, I subbed in this district. I've subbed all throughout the district. I know what's going on. I know how the students are. I know what the parents think. I know what the teachers are thinking. I know what the teachers are saying in the lunchroom. So that connection is important, because without that, how are you really going to be able to serve my kids if you don't really know what's actually going on?